John Sumrall's initial coaching staff with the Florida Gators is almost finalized.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free reviews of the podcast and on YouTube. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Quick reminder, this week, holiday, we will still have our regularly scheduled programming. And today at noon Eastern time is what we're shooting for. Trying to go live, talk about the transfer portal, coaching staff, whole bunch of things. You're going to be live for a while, right? We could probably do that. We'll see how it goes. Obviously, still getting over the flu, but we're there. And John Sumrall has pretty much filled out his coaching staff at the University of Florida, right? Got offensive coordinator Buster Faulkner was a massive hire, right? And we'll talk about them all today, so we'll take our time here. But the Buster Faulkner hire was huge, right? He's been an offensive coordinator since 2008, outside of the couple years that he was at Georgia, from 2020 to 2022, or 2020 to 2021, and then he went to Georgia Tech. And he's the guy that, of course, a lot of people look at what he did at Georgia Tech, and they go, okay, well, he's going to run the quarterback a ton. This is going to be, I don't think people really call it that, but it's essentially a power spread, what they run at Georgia Tech. And I think a lot of people see that and go, I don't think that's going to work here. I don't think that would work at DJ Lagway before DJ Lagway entered the portal. But it's important to remember and revisit that when you go back to what Buster Faulkner has done throughout his career as a coordinator, we can talk about how, again, I've said I think that this might look like a new offense that not many people have really seen before, where the passing attack looks a bit more air raidy, like it looks a bit more like the hatch attack. And the run game, including quarterback, looks a bit more like the power spread. First off, I said this before, like if that is what it looks like, love it. Gotta be honest with you. Love it if that's what it looks like. But the actual most important thing to remember when we talk about what Buster Faulkner brings to the table as a coordinator, he has always adapted to the strengths of his team. No matter what it is, he's always adapted to the strength of his team. He's had years where, I think it was Middle Tennessee State, where he had 3 guys with over 100 carries, or 4 guys with over 100 carries. And then the next year, they set like school records for passing numbers. Right? Like this is a team that, or a coordinator that changes. That's what good coordinators do, by the way. Like a good coordinator isn't a system. A good coordinator isn't, we're going to be this, spread raid style that you see like Lincoln Riley, right? Where it has like this air raid concepts mixed in, but it's also got the RPO spread thrown in there. No, this is a guy that does that, and that's what a good coordinator is. That just goes, I'm going to use what I have. You could look at Georgia Tech when he had Haynes King in compared to when Aaron Philo came in, who many people think is going to come to Florida. The offense looks different. Aaron Philo is not a runner like that. Haynes King will run the ball 17 times in a game. Aaron Philo is only doing that if he's getting chased out of that pocket. That's it. So Buster Faulkner, great hire. Then you have Brad White. Brad White's been an SEC defensive coordinator for 6-7 years now. We'll do it. And he's mostly had pretty good defenses. People could talk about the numbers dropping this year, but again, I bring to you the same argument that I brought the day Brad White was hired. I bring the same argument to you that I brought that day. Florida's defense was ranked like 63rd in the country this year scoring. Brad White's was ranked 74th with Kentucky, if I'm not mistaken. Why, like nobody at Florida, no Florida fan goes, yeah, Florida really Florida deserved the 63rd defense. We all watched it. We all watched our starting quarterback give the ball away 5 times, and this team still only allowed 20 points. We watched the games. We saw our defense be a lot better than that. Right? We watched them be great, and they broke down and things got really tough, and there were some games where the offense gave you nothing and even gave the ball to the other team a ton. Kentucky did the same thing. Kentucky turned the ball over more than Florida did. I don't like giving this excuse of, oh, they had a really bad turnover-heavy offense to just Florida. Kentucky had that as well. We can add a second school to the schools that we care to bring it up about. Right? Like if someone wants to have this conversation about, I don't even know where they rank defensively. I'm just throwing out a school. I don't know. Iowa State. If someone had to argue, we could look at the numbers. We can have that conversation. But we know what Florida is. We know what Kentucky is. We can acknowledge, hey, these defenses are a lot better than the numbers say they are, right? You can watch those defenses. And in games where the offense isn't shooting them in the foot the entire time, you can see the defense giving the opposing teams fits. You can watch that happen, that the defense, up until the offense kills it for them, the defense is out there making plays and fighting properly, right? And like I know that people could talk about like, oh well, this kind of defense was allowing a ton of yards. I don't care about yards. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't care about yards. I care about points. That's the thing that matters. Points. You don't win games by, oh, who has the most yards. You win games by who has the most points. All that matters to me. That's it. I don't care. If you have 500 yards but 7 points, good job. You got your yards. I care about points, right? And like we've seen, John Sumrall has said like scoring defense is what matters. Scoring offense is what matters. Why? Because scoring matters. That's it. You want to win football games? Score more than the other team. Don't let them score more than you. Right? I don't care about the yards. It means nothing to me. I will also say that I'm going to apologize in advance, and I'm probably going to butcher at least some of these names. At least some of these names today. Special teams coordinator is someone that, yesterday we got a bunch of announcements. Tulane, of course, lost the bowl game on Saturday night against Ole Miss. And then Sunday, we got a bunch of the announcements of who is coming in to fill roles. And Jonathan Galante, special teams coordinator at Tulane, is now going to be the Florida Gators special teams coordinator. Tulane had one of the best special teams in the units, one of the best special teams units in the country this year, especially when you're talking about field position battle. So, and I know like people want to dismiss that, but people want to dismiss that stat, but it is very relevant because field position battle is not strictly did we move the ball and then punt and that helped us field position wise. No, field position battle does matter with punt coverage, not allowing big returns, and punt return, actually getting those blocks and returning them, field goal or kickoff as well, field goals as well. But Tulane had one of the better special teams units in the country. Coach Galante was up for a Broyles Award nominee, whatever you want to call them. He was up for that this year. Didn't get it, obviously. But like that's what we're talking about. We're talking about bringing Jonathan Galante in with that. That's cool with me. I do think also that like I don't know what it is, but the coaches that are kind of psycho, and it's just like I just want to win. That's it. Disciplinarian style. That's what they are. I feel like they always have good special teamers, or good special teams coaches. And I'm not going to lie. I'm still a little bit hurt that Joe Houston's not here. I was a big fan of his. And even players that I spoke to, big fans of him. he's at LSU now. So unfortunate for us, but he's at LSU now. He's a hell of a special teams coordinator, but I'm happy with Jonathan Galante. I am like there were quite a few names that I saw people float that I wouldn't have been happy with, but Jonathan Galante is one that I'm good to carry over from Tulane. There were a few other people that got carried over from Tulane, and there's an important talking point with that, right? With bringing people over from Tulane specifically. We'll talk about that and the offensive coaching staff when we get back with Locked On Gators. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. And that's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, right? You're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum shift, every highlight moment. All on FanDuel. You can watch it happen and you can react to it live. You could just make a bet, see what happens, right? So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. And we're going to talk about the Florida Gators offensive coaching staff now, at least most of it. Running back coach still vacant. So we're going to talk about that. But before we do, because we're going to talk about a few guys today that are coming over with John Sumrall from Tulane to Florida. And I know that there's a bunch of people that go, oh, he's bringing over guys that are, just from Tulane. He's doing the Billy thing. There's a very big distinction from what John Sumrall is doing with bringing guys over from his staff compared to what Billy Napier did, where, Billy brought in Patrick Toney, who was his DC at Louisiana, brought him in to be the DC at Florida, right? That's completely like as in title, completely lateral, obviously position at Florida, way higher. So title, lateral, school, way higher. That means you're now doing this on a way more difficult scale. Florida's quarterbacks coach is going to be Joe Craddock. Okay? He's Tulane's offensive coordinator. It's a very big difference also to say going, again, DC at Louisiana to DC at Florida. Big difference to say, hey, I'm going to be your offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach at Tulane, and then just be your quarterbacks coach at Florida. That's good. Getting these guys from smaller schools to bigger programs with less responsibility, that's the way to make that move if you're going to make that move. Like if you want to bring guys from your smaller school, go ahead, do it. But you can't bring them over and have them just be completely the same everywhere. Like you can't have them come over and just hold the same responsibilities because it's a lot harder here. So for Joe Craddock, I'll say this openly. I would have freaking hated him as our offensive coordinator. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I am not a fan of Tulane's offense this year. I hated watching it. That little Giants play they brought out in the college football playoff game drove me nuts, especially because I had a bunch of people text me right after and saying, you okay with your coach doing that? And I was like, he's not the OC. That's not my coach. And now the OC is on my staff. Yeah, I would have hated him as the offensive coordinator. I don't think he's a good play caller right now. I don't think he's awful. Or maybe it's not even the play calling. It's genuinely like he's one of the guys where I'm like, I don't like this scheme that he runs, like the system that he's running. It's just, it's really not a fun thing to watch for me. But as a QB coach, I can go and I can look at all the quarterbacks that he's had, at least, under him in some regard, because he's had, some spots he's been an OC or just QB coach or whatever it may be. But every QB he's had under him has been fairly productive. But the thing is for him, of course, he's never done it at this level. That's the part that might be a little concerning for Florida fans, where you have the guy doing this at a role that he's never done before, to an extent that he's never done it before. But guess what? That's why he's not an offensive coordinator and QB coach now. He's here. He's on the staff. Every quarterback he's had under him has been productive. We'll give him that credit. He was at Clemson with Deshaun Watson. Productive, right? He was not the QB coach. I'm not saying that. But he was there. He was GA with QB coaches, or quality control with quarterbacks, whatever it was. But he was working with Deshaun Watson there. So he's had at least some Power 4 experience. But again, that was what, a decade ago? We're not really counting that as like, oh, he did that. He helped with that. No. What you have is a guy that has coordinator experience and is going to be working with quarterbacks. And it's also important to note Buster Faulkner, who is just offensive coordinator, no position tied to him. He was supposed to be OC/QBs. He's also going to be working with the quarterbacks, as every offensive coordinator should. So you're going to have both of them there with the quarterbacks. That should at least help mitigate some of that doubt. And I do think that's why you have that. I do think that's why you have Buster Faulkner able to work with your quarterbacks. And Joe Craddock, who, again, every quarterback's been productive. I don't know so much about truly developing them, but they've been productive. There's a difference. That you've got both of them there. That helps. Wide receivers coach, you got Marcus Davis from Auburn, Florida ties, right? SEC experience. We spoke about him last week. Excited to see what he can bring to the table. He's had receivers produce. He's had receivers that he's recruited that have done pretty well. But again, like he was at his alma mater before. That carries weight as a recruit. That carries weight to be recruited by someone that played at that same school that can actually relate to you. Now he's going to be at Florida, a little bit different, but now he's also got closer ties here. Tight ends coach Evan McKissick played offensive line at Troy, coached tight ends at Murray State, then again coached tight ends at Troy under John Sumrall. Then, because I feel like people just go, oh, and then he went to offensive line. Coached tight ends at Tulane in John Sumrall's first year, and then this year took over as co-OC/offensive line coach. Okay, this isn't, oh, this is an offensive line coach that's coming down to coach tight ends. No, this is a guy that has coached tight ends a good bit. Like he's not this, 20-year vet, but a guy that's coached tight ends more than offensive line probably, and went to O-line for a year and is now coming to tight ends. This isn't an O-line coach that all of a sudden they're like, you weren't good enough. Tight ends it is. Nope. This is a guy that has coached tight ends, went to co-OC/O-line for whatever reason. Honestly, I don't know why that move happened before the 2025 season, but it did. But then now, back to tight ends. Okay? We can also talk about Buster Faulkner there, because when Buster Faulkner was at Georgia Tech, tight end coach. He's OC/tight ends. So you're going to have that. I think that'll help a lot with the tight end recruiting. I think Buster Faulkner is going to be more helpful there than Evan McKissick is. I think Buster Faulkner is also going to be more helpful recruiting quarterbacks than Joe Craddock. Not a knock on Craddock. Having your OC tell you things, really important, right? Like having the OC tell you, hey, this is how we're going to use you, matters more than a position coach telling you that. Position coach should be telling you, hey, this is how I'm going to develop you. OC tells you, hey, this is how I'm going to use you. You're going to have that. So Buster Faulkner, and I'm not trying to like double dip and go, oh, he can help you with everything. But I am trying to tell you that Buster Faulkner can help you in multiple spots, at least those two. And that's going to matter. Like that's going to matter to players and coaches. And I'm not saying this again to, I was not an Evan McKissick guy before this. I was not a Joe Craddock guy before this. They're here. That's what it is. Are they the hires I would have made? Probably not. But do I trust the staff that they're putting together? Yeah, I trust the staff, because where they really nailed it, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, special teams coordinator, offensive line coach, defensive line coach. Destroyed the ball. Destroyed it. Like Shohei if he went to single A. Just annihilated it. Okay? You nailed it at the most important spots. Coordinators, trenches. If you want to take your swings with guys that you just have faith in and you go, hey, our coordinators can help out here, I'm cool with it, genuinely. Like I mentioned, offensive line coach, Phil Trautwein. One of the best offensive line coaches in the country, one of the most well-respected offensive line coaches in the country, and he's a Florida alum. Like I said, when talking about Marcus Davis, when he was at Auburn and how recruiting receivers was probably easier for him there because he was an alum, Phil Trautwein gets that same thing. He was a Florida Gator. He was here when this team was winning championships. He knows what it's like. That's going to help him on the recruiting trail, where he could say that to players, and then he could also say, oh, by the way, not only was I here when we were winning championships, I've developed a lot of first-round picks and NFL draft picks and long-time NFL players, even if they weren't picked. I've helped that. Pretty easy selling point. Like I mentioned, he nailed the trenches. We're going to talk about the defensive line coach in Edgewood. We're familiar with him, right? But gotta love talking about chat. We'll talk about that when we get back with Locked On Gators. There's nothing quite like college football season, college basketball season. I mean, college sports season, right? You get in there, packed stadiums. I mean, what was it? 2 weeks ago now? 2 weeks ago already. Went to Madison Square Garden with a bunch of you. A bunch of you were there. We were talking. We were hanging out, right? Madison Square Garden. Watch the Florida Gators unfortunately lose to the UConn Huskies. But hell of a game to be in the crowd for. Hell of an atmosphere for a neutral site game. It was a good game. It was a fun game, right? I got my takes for game time. I'll tell you that. Game time gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college tickets and experiences in just a few taps. Take the guesswork out of buying college tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever it's the podcast and on YouTube. And to wrap up today's show, we're going to talk about the defensive staff for a bit. Defensive line coach, Gerald Chatman. Sorry. Let me give him the appropriate associate head coach / defensive line coach, Gerald Chatman. Nice to hear. As we were told late last week, over the weekend, LSU tried to take Gerald Chatman, didn't happen. Then associate head coach got added, and it's like, all right, we know how they kept him. Good. Keep him. He's a hell of a coach. Again, you got coordinators right. You got trenches right. Usually a pretty good formula for just at baseline being a pretty good team. If you win in those areas, scheme, trenches, pretty good spot to be in. Gerald Chatman, dude. All you got to say about him, dude. Then you have the first defensive hire that's not already here. Outside linebackers coach Bam Hardmon. Again, Florida alum. So you have that. You got one on each side of the ball there. Helps you. Bam Hardmon's been a positional coach since 2012. He's been with outside linebackers since at least 2021. I know that there's people like I've seen people online list that he was D-line coach at Troy and all that. He was, but when you go back to look at the actual, and like if you look at like his Wikipedia, it says D-line the whole time he was at Troy. I was trying to find year by year the coaching staff at Troy, and I could only go back to 2021, which is why I say he's been with the outside linebacker since at least 2021. But I can only go back and find a full itemized coaching staff back through 2021. And he was listed as outside linebackers coach then. So he's been coaching outside linebackers for longer than just the 3 years or 2 years with Sumrall at Tulane, and he wasn't just D-line prior to that. he was coaching outside linebackers then. So he's got a bit more experience than that. Will he work out? I don't know, right? We just had a Florida Gator alum that played inside linebacker and is coaching outside linebackers. But you've got a guy like Bam Hardmon here, and Bam has a solid reputation for people that I've spoken to at Tulane. I'll be happy with it. Like, I'll be happy with it, and I will say, yeah, maybe wasn't the resume higher, but I will be happy with him coming here again as a veteran player, veteran coach, veteran guy that's been here. Again, he's been a position coach since 2012. I think he was a GA for 3 years before that. So he's one of the longest tenured coaches around on this staff right now. That'll help, especially with how young this defensive staff is. That would be a big help. Inside linebackers coach Greg Gasparito, Tulane's defensive coordinator. Again, similar to Joe Craddock. This is taking your coordinator, bringing him down to a position coach. That's what you're doing. Like that's a good thing to do. You're not asking him to do the coordinating bits. You're not asking him to lead the system. You've got him there. And similar to Joe Craddock, who was Tulane's OC and is now Florida's QB coach, and now has Buster Faulkner, who has quarterback coach experience. With Greg Gasparito, he was Tulane's defensive coordinator. He's now coaching inside linebackers. And oh, by the way, defensive coordinator Brad White, linebacker coach experience. John Sumrall, linebacker coach experience. Like, I think the real logic behind the Greg Gasparito and Joe Craddock moves was, let's get guys with coordinator experience here that we know can work with Sumrall, but also can have help from the now coordinators. And whenever those coordinators get hired away, if this works out, whenever those coordinators get hired away, we can promote them. Like, I'd be willing to say right now, like, yeah, Joe Craddock probably going to be Florida's next OC if Buster Faulkner works out well for a year or two and takes a head coaching job somewhere else. Greg Gasparito just might be Florida's DC if Brad White stays for a couple years and then gets a head coaching job somewhere. Very possible. And I'm cool with it. Honestly, I'm cool with having your coordinator in training. Go ahead. Works for me. Like, I think that's the real logic behind it, though, is let's bring in guys with coordinator experience so they can still help with the game planning and they can still help with all that stuff. But it's not the expectation right now. But let's also let them get kind of a feel for what this is like. Let's let them see what it's like to call plays at the Power 4 level, to call plays at the SEC level. Let's let them see that. And then we can really, truly get them situated for when it's their turn, they're there. If it's their turn. In the secondary, it's interesting because Florida now has 3 coaches in the secondary. You've got cornerback coach Brandon Harris, who we've talked about, right? Heavy South Florida ties. Has had productive secondaries in the past 2 years with FAU and UCF. And he's a guy that I think John Sumrall just went, hey, I'm going to get a good football coach. We'll figure everything else out. I'm going to get a good football coach, a guy that gets his guys to produce right now. Okay, if I can get his guys to produce right now with the athletes we can get to Florida, if they're producing, they're going to get drafted. We're going to win games. That'll help recruiting. Safety coach Chris Collins was Kentucky's secondary coach and co-DC under Brad White, coming here to just be safeties, which, again, that's taking a guy and bringing him in on a smaller role significantly. He's no longer a co-DC. And he's not ahead of the whole secondary. He's out of just safeties. That's, again, taking a guy. And this isn't even from a smaller school. This is even from a lower school, right? This is SEC to SEC. Kentucky to Florida. It's a step up. My assumption here, honestly, is that when Brad White got hired, this is one of the guys that Brad White was like, hey, I want to keep him. Or I want to bring him with me. I'll bring him in a smaller role if I have to, but I want to bring him with me. That's how I viewed it, at least. I'm not saying that's what happened, but just based on that transition and how that went, I think that's how it went. Kentucky's secondary under Brad White as DC and Chris Collins as secondary coach, co-DC. Again, NFL guy every year, productive secondary without any really elite players there. Maxwell Harrison, first round pick last year. This past year, nailed it. The last one was one that floored me, frankly. Someone that was a quality control coach at Florida this year, working with Nichols. Dae'one Wilkins is the Nichols/star coach, which is really interesting. Again, really curious about it. He's 25 years old, which frankly makes me hate my life. Just want to throw that out there that a 25-year-old is now Florida's Nichols/star coach. I think Graham Hall, when he reported it, was like, yeah, he might be the youngest position coach in the SEC, and he genuinely might be, and that's insane. Just want to throw that back. That's crazy. Played nickel at Furman. He was a GA under Brad White, under Chris Collins at Kentucky in 2024. Easy tie. I thought that there was a chance he'd be retained. I didn't think there was a chance to be retained as a position coach. That I wasn't anticipating. I'm not going to say I'm not complaining about it, because I am very stunned by it. Like, I'm not even on my radar as a position coach. But again, you got help around you. You got that. Is he qualified resume wise? Hell no. No. But he's here. They have faith. And also, John Sumrall is an absolute psycho. If you can sell yourself to him like that, go ahead. I mean, look, they went to the college football playoff, and John Sumrall just went. I told my guys it's never okay to lose. It's never okay. Anybody that tells you that it's okay, get them out of your life. I'm sold. Dude's a maniac. Love it. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free wherever the podcast and on YouTube. We'll be back later today. We're going to go live. This recording, we'll see how long it goes. But we're Locked On Gators. I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter, WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI, and I will see you all next time.